Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome storyteller, Saba Communications Consultants, Siba Oda.
Howdy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming in again. Thank you very much for the ministers. It's been a very interesting morning. It's been a very interesting day and a half, in fact, and we've been talking about the kingdom, of course, improving and extending its competitiveness. And at the cornerstone of that, of course, is the youth and educating the youth, empowering them to become leaders of the future. We had heard, of course, earlier this morning from Mr. Khalid Al-Faleh, who said that the kingdom's hedge is education for competitiveness. And he talked about the role that Aramco was playing in bringing about this competitiveness and moving the youth forward. In bridging the gap between education and employment was a good point that he made. We heard, of course, earlier from His Royal Highness, the Minister of Education, talk about the skills that that the government is committed to ensuring that the youth are empowered with as they go through their education years, talking about empowering them with creative thinking, critical thinking, encouraging innovation and flexibility in education as well. And yesterday, His Excellency, the Minister for Economy and Planning, Dr. Al-Jasser, had mentioned that 75% of the youth in Saudi Arabia are employed within the government sector. That's a very big number. But beyond that as well, the Minister of Labor plan for 2014 shows staggering number of 18% of youth between the age of 15 and 24 are not in education, employment, or training. And that is not the way it should be, and we should be moving forward. And we have a panel with us today. On the panel, we have the young entrepreneur. We also have the gentleman who benefited from the training program, bridging the gap between education and employment. We have the education specialist, of course, and the empowerment, youth empowerment. Allow me to introduce them to you one after the other, and then we move on to our discussion, and they can all give us their comments and thinking of how we can bridge the gaps that we are facing. I would remind you, if you have any questions, please let us have them, whether via Twitter or email, or with old-fashioned way, put your hand up and we'll get a mic over to you by all means. On my left here is Mr. Kingsley Bangwell. He is the founder of Young Stars Foundation in Nigeria, and that is an organization that aims to enhance leadership development among youth and improve competencies with them. And next to him is, of course, Mr. Odd Aiken. He's the Executive Vice President of Kunskapsskolen Education, which has a structured model for personalized learning, putting the student at the center of the school. Mr. Aiken was State Secretary for Schools and Adult Education in the Swedish Ministry of Education, and throughout his career he has been involved in advising the Swedish government and also other nations in improving on their education skills. Next to Odd, we have Rayan Al-Ghanim. He's a reservoir engineer at Saudi Aramco. He's also a member of the Saudi Aramco Young Leaders Advisory Board, and he will tell us a little bit more about that board. And he's a graduate of the Aramco training program. We also have on our panel here with us today Zaid bin Sultan, an entrepreneur. He set up his venture about 3 years ago. It is now a leading company in developing and supplying innovative products to research institutions. The company is set up within the incubator at CAXT, and we would love to learn a lot more from you about your experience and what got you there in the first place. And last but not least, Abdulaziz Tarabzouni, who is a policy and communication consultant. Abdulaziz, let me start from the end and start with you, please. Give us your experience from your own experience, the youth that are graduating from King Abdullah's scholarship program. They come back to the country. There's about 6,000 of them a year. What's foremost on their mind when they come back? What do they want to do now that they have a good level of education?
let me start by thanking you for having us on this very important panel. The graduates of the King Abdullah Scholarship Program, يعني, just like the majority of the young Saudi population, 60%, need to feel like they are part of this economy and part of this society. They want to be believed in. What's happening now is some people graduating from top schools in the US, 6,000 people a year probably, they come back to the country and they find sometimes difficulties joining the market and applying the necessary and the needed skills and tools to improve the economy. They have learned a lot. Some of them left this country speaking one language, and they came back with high degrees, being more creative and being bilingual. But yet they come back and they face challenges that limit them from creating their own companies. I'll tell you, the most important factor is the rhetoric surrounding this conversation, and there has to be closure to this. Is it a problem of mindset, or is it a real problem in the economy? The answer is clear, it's a problem. There is nothing with the mindset of the Saudi people. We have, يعني, Arabs in general, in this region, have been living here for decades and centuries. Being born here is a challenge. Our grandfathers used to work at the age of 11 and 12. They were not entrepreneurs in today's definition, but indeed they had the tools, they excelled, they did well, and today we're a continuation of that generation. So when they come back to the country and they just keep getting this rhetoric that it's about the mindset and everything else is fine, it's quite depressing because there are real legal challenges. I'll tell you an example.
They have to fall into a stereotype? Is that what you're saying?
It's a stereotype. And unfortunately, it's not, يعني, it's ignoring some very important realities. For example, I was talking with a Saudi entrepreneur yesterday. I didn't ask him to say his name, I'm not, but he is a very successful entrepreneur. He's telling me that he wanted to apply for a government contract. He has an SME, a very small company. He was requested to provide cash as a bid bond for some project. Those are things that are limiting young Saudis from actually competing in the market.
Okay.
Yani, you have to have an exception for entrepreneurs. You have to have it.
Okay.
And only by doing that will you allow them to compete, and you will gain the benefits of them being abroad and coming back. Or else they will just go back in the system, just keep doing what their elders were doing, and the change will be very limited.
Okay, so you want the system to adopt these new young minds, fresh minds. You want them to come in and be given the opportunity and the exceptions to make it as
Absolutely.
entrepreneurs.
I think what's key
but
is
not everybody
empowerment.
needs to be an entrepreneur. So coming in, working in a government job seems always to be the easier option for Saudis. So let me just go to you, Zaid, now and ask you, how did you make the step from going, not wanting to be in a government job or an employee for that matter, but rather to be an employer and set up your own venture?
Well, I just found a solution for a problem, which is basically any entrepreneur's mission in order to start a business is to find a problem and to find a solution where he can or she can add value and find a solution for a consumer or a business or even the government. So I was lucky with the startup phase where I was incubated in Bader Biotechnology at CAXT, and they've helped me to create the business and to save up a lot of the startup expenses. But also, going back to your question, I think we can promote the success stories and encourage young people not to go with the safe governmental job, and to encourage them to show how the high rewards of a new business where they can manage their own success and shape their own future.
Odd, can I ask you what is the role of government, therefore?
Well, I think the role of government, you can't see the role of government without also discussing the role of the private sector, I think, because it's a striking fact to just think that in the 1960s, two countries Jamaica and Singapore had approximately the same GDP per capita. And now the difference is times 10, 12. And this boils down to the human capital strategy, just as His Royal Highness Prince Khalid touched upon. So in a human capital strategy, I think you have to, having been both in the public sector and in government working with education, you have to realize that this task is too big for either of us. We have to collaborate. But this has to be done in a way where you realize the strength of the private sector and the public sector. The public sector is very strong when it comes to promote and protect. Promote and protect standards by defining them in curriculum, or promote and protect quality, equality, and so forth. It's very bad when it comes to operate and innovate. On the other hand, the private sector is good when it comes to operate and innovate. And as I think we all agree, we desperately need much more innovations in education. I mean, schools more or less look the same as they did 50, 100 years ago. And we need innovations when it comes to implementing technology, not only changing the blackboard to a smartboard, but using big data or using algorithms, learning algorithms in order to personalize education. We can do all that, and we need innovation in order to raise the standard and status of the teacher professions and all that. And that could only be done out in the front, in the trenches, by the practitioners, making the mistakes, continuously trial and error and developing, and that is best done in the private sector, I think.
Okay. Let's just get a comment from you, Rayan. You joined Aramco. You've graduated from, you finished your higher education. You joined Aramco as a reservoir engineer. And then you joined the training program. So how did you find that, and how did that improve your prospects for your future, for your career?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be here. To answer your questions about, I believe there has always been a gap between what schools and colleges provide and what employers want. And I believe that gap is widening. Why? Because now jobs are just more complex, more challenging, they're more dynamic, and just managers expect their employees to get up to speed much faster than in the past. Now, I think to answer how to bridge that gap really lies into three main categories. One, I believe that employers need to establish closer relationships with educational institutes. Number two, I believe that also employers need to establish a very robust internal development and training programs. And number three, I believe that they need to engage their employees in more initiatives and professional certifications and professional societies within the company. Now, if I can just clarify my first point, which is that they need to establish a closer relationship with educational institutes. You know, just to give you a few examples that Aramco are doing currently, is, for example, that they help local universities and schools design their curricula. They give them perspective about their programs, and most importantly, they always offer high school and college students the opportunity to come for Aramco as a meaningful summer training or as an internship. So the students will have a broader base of relevant skills, and they will understand more once they go back to their schools, the skills that they need to develop once they went back to their prospective schools, because they'll know what their future jobs demand. Now, my second point is about establishing a very robust internal development and training program. Now, what I mean by that is it needs to be in the core strategy of any company. Now, I'm not talking about just offering the initial needs of a job where the employee can be competent to do that job, but I'm talking about teaching the employee real life skills. Things like time management, things like problem solving, oral communication, business writing, how to multitask, and things with that nature. Now, I also believe that they need to look at the talent and explore the talent in these employees and help bring that talent to the surface, which is something I see Aramco doing on a regular basis. Now, our CEO of Saudi Aramco, Khalid Al-Faleh, mentioned a couple of examples, including the ITRA youth. I'll mention another one, which is, again, Aramco bring high school and college grads to Aramco to get a better understanding of their future and prospective jobs. We also have what we call the Professional Development Program in Aramco. It's for any Saudi fresh grad. It's a 3-year program where the employee will be evaluated on a 6-month basis and will be always guided by a mentor in a very robust mentorship program. Now, what's really unique about this Professional Development Program is this. In 3 years, the employee will be rotating every 6 months to different company assignments and locations. For example, as an engineer will rotate around gas plants, refineries, mechanical shops, and things with that nature. Finance graduates will be going to places like business development, corporate planning, investment management, and things like that. So it really gives an opportunity to the youth of the company and the young generation of the company to explore their talent and to get exposure of the whole business of the company. My last point, which I'll make it very brief, is really engaging the employee other than their technical contribution, which is in professional societies and other clubs, such as the newly established in Saudi Aramco, the Young Leaders Advisory Board, which really serves as a communication medium between the youth of the company, the young generation of Saudi Aramco, and corporate management.
Rayan just mentioned the skills that they learn in this training program within Aramco, acquiring new skills, time management, etc. Should these skills, and a big buzzword, of course, at the moment in the region here is 21st century skills that students need to be armed with. Should that be left for the companies to teach their new recruits? How can we implement that into the curriculum, into the education system?
Well, I think I listened to my friend Ryan here, and I couldn't agree more that these are a great initiative and things that should be done. At the same time, I think we should realize the fact that one thing that none of us, neither the private or the public sector, are very good at is to predict the needs of the labor market in 5, 10, or 15 years. Right. I mean, some of the coolest jobs around didn't even exist 5 years ago. So I think, with the exception for some few areas, like teachers, we know for sure that there will be an increasing lack of teachers. I by the way, heard the panel discussing women participation in the labor market yesterday, and I could use the same argument for the opposite thing. We need half of the population, the men, also in education. It's the most important and rewarding thing you can do, and we need guys to go in there. But that's a side point. But besides from that, we don't know. So I think we have to accept the fact and build the system based on that insight. We all know God's first words to the prophet. And I must say there is no other religion who has this firm commitment to lifelong learning. Mm-hmm. Go out and learn. It's lifelong learning, and we have to realize that whatever profession you choose today, you will have to relearn, and you have to perhaps change professions several times during your career. So we need to make a system where learn to learn, as you touch upon, is a key point. Because you have to renew your learning, but also where the kind of corrosion-free skills, the learn-to-learn skills, have a bigger place, like language, like math and science, and the things that you, regardless of how you have to renew your competence, need as a basis. And then we need open doors to the system. We need vocational training of the German system, close linked to reality, and we need a flexibility in the whole system.
Right. Kingsley, let me ask you, what is it that you do at Youngstars, and how is it that you keep the youth engaged and you keep them improving their competencies?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, let me start by, expressing our condolence on the great loss of the kingdom and thanking the organizers for inviting me to be on this platform. Well, the Youngsters Foundation is a group I run in Nigeria and Ghana. where we're registered and working with young people to improve competences. Over the last 10 years, we've been running the oldest and the annual Youth Leadership and Governance Training Program in the country, and the message has been how young people can become more active in nation-state development. And so feedback that has been coming back has been that when you talk about young people, you're looking at, and you talk about engagement, the conversation or the narrative has been around how can you get young people talking about the issues that affect them, how can you get their voice heard, how can you give them visibility. But what we're seeing of late, and the feedback we're getting from young people is beyond just making their voices heard and talking about the issues that affect them, that young people can actually contribute to solutions.
Okay.
Because if you just leave them at the platform where you say, have your voice heard and all of that, and then you're not involving them in giving them platforms to be able to, contribute solutions, then you're not technically empowering them to make them competitive in the world that is emerging. And so of late, one of our flagship projects is what we call the Thinking School, where we're encouraging young people to come together and create a space where you can just come in and think about the social problems that confront your local community and think of how to come up with a solution, soft or hard solution.
Okay.
If you look around the Global Innovation Index, the countries that rank highly in those, in the first 10 countries that rank very highly are countries where you've seen high-level innovation. And if you look at the group that is fostering this innovation, is young people. And so when I look at the Saudi population also, about 50% under the age of 44 so, and then that population will be doubling, possibly by 2050 in the next 30 years. And there was, I think you or one of the speakers said about 6,000, Saudis come back every year. And then there's a challenge on, how they can foster the culture of entrepreneurship. And about 75% of that get into government jobs. If you want to do a projection over the next 25, 50 years, what is going to make a young person very competitive is not the fact of that they can have access to government jobs or they have good grades and good qualification, but it's going to be their innovative value. It's going to be about the quality of innovation they are contributing to solving social problems. And so if we're seeing, having a projection that population is going to double in the next 35 years by possibly 50%, the focus should therefore be how do we critically increase the percentage of young people in that population that are innovative, in the sense that they can solve problems, come up with ideas, come up with products that can be used locally, and not just locally, regionally, and possibly globally. A simple search will show you that Saudi youths, the most visited website by Saudi youths is YouTube and Google.
Yes.
And these are products of young people in another space that is encouraging young people to do what? Innovate and create solutions that are used not just there, but globally, and have become global brands. We had the CEO of Google here yesterday speaking. So for me, I think that is the way to look at the future from now, and that's why we're running this kind of programs. And if you ask me, Saudi has a very strategic role to play in this, and it's strategic right now. You invest in about 25% of your GDP in education and training. Possibly we need to begin to look at a concept where they begin to encourage what I call thinking space, innovation space. If you have a mall, why don't you have a small kind of called thinking space, thinking mall, where young people, if you come in, you have some refreshment, you want to also go there, and create some kind of model incentive that encourages that, and schools, communities can have innovation or thinking, cafes. And at the end of the year, you can aggregate these young people together to say where are the most innovative ideas that are coming from there and give it support to grow. So in the next 20, 25 years, they become as more competitive as the rest of young people around the world.
So give the youth a bit of space to get them to think, get them to...
Open space where they can think.
Some air to go around the brain and between each other, and then exchange ideas.
And then find those unique ideas. There may be 1,000 or 500 of them coming together, but every year you can find 1, 2, 3 promising ideas that if you scale and support, they can become global grants that can also be a narrative from this part of the world.
Let me ask if there are any questions in the room. Let us know. There are a couple of questions that I'm getting here. And mostly it's about how do you incentivize the youth to get into private sector jobs? How do you incentivize the youth to get off out of government jobs or get off unemployment when, as someone here is saying, sorry, I don't have the name, but she's saying they can live comfortable lives on government unemployment. even if they have skills, young people can still live comfortably off of unemployment. So how do you incentivize them to go and get jobs and stay in jobs?
Well, I think again it's by promoting these success stories and showing how they can gain more, and when creating a value, they can the rewards can be much higher than a governmental job. It's much more challenging, much more interesting, and to be fair, actually in the past couple of years we've seen a growing movement into that section, into entrepreneurship. Many graduates have come back and tried to do their own thing. We've seen that in the F&B sector, especially here. So many people are opening restaurants, and the economy is very big, and it can absorb all of new businesses in many sectors. And it's just by showing people when seeing young people succeeding in different sectors, they'll get more encouraged to move away and from the government.
So telling more stories,
yes,
putting them up as role models that can be followed. What about mentorship? I mean, what is the role of mentorship? Maybe Abdulaziz, you'd like to comment on that.
And I think what's most important here is to just guide the resources that we have, this huge population of youth. How do we utilize that? Yani, there are very few sessions that we see, for example, saying that we have half the world's oil, so what do we do about it? You just utilize it. And how do you utilize young people? You set a national goal. This is what we need. We need something that all people marshal around. Yani, we need our moonshot, the Kennedy moment where he said we're going to go to the moon in 10 years.
Right.
That was a moment that inspired everyone because it was a very ambitious target. It was measurable, and it had the capacity of just allowing everyone to participate. Now you have a population that is eager to give more. This is what we complain about all the time, that we need to do more. So we need to be guided in that direction. And I must say, yani, the political side of this, our young people are entrepreneurial in spirit, they're risk takers, they're willing to be very adventurous. Now, who's capitalizing on that? Unfortunately, the very extremists are. They are investing more energy and more time and even يعني, reaching out to those young people in their own platforms than the moderates. And what is happening now, you find people, unfortunately, with high degrees all over the Arab world, from Syria, Iraq, Egypt, even, unfortunately, from this country, that were misguided because they have the tools, they have the skills, and they are risk takers by nature. So just call them in. A call of action by the leadership, the very highest levels of leadership in the region, saying that, for example, we need to decrease the dependency on oil by this much in this time frame. And everyone has to be on board. There is no choice other than that. This call of leadership should be then translated to government policies, to laws and regulations, and then to even majors that students go and study in universities, and only by doing that will we be able to participate. I'll say one more point about education, because education, what we heard Prince Khalid al-Faisal say, the necessity not only to enable the next generation of scientists and engineers, but more importantly, the focus on national values. Because we have to admit and understand that the sense of national unity, those values that are يعني, the foundation of this country, are the first and second and third and last line of defense that we should build. Only by empowering those young people, the next generation, making them understand the progress that we made and realize what we can do forward and utilize those values, will we be able to defend ourselves from any economic threat, oil prices, external threats, you name it, only by building this strong population. And never underestimate the power that a very small group of young people can do, because indeed they're the ones that are capable to lead forward.
These are very powerful comments, and I think so, yeah. Powerful comments and a powerful call for action. I'll come to you, Odd, in a minute. I just need to ask kindly the stewards, could we have one mic to the front of the room here? The gentleman in white, and then there's another mic right behind him as well. Odd, you wanted to comment on what Abdulaziz was saying?
Well, I just thought when you, the question that the purpose of life is not just to have a comfortable life. The purpose of life is to achieve something or contribute to something. And I think it starts early on in early childhood education that you need to switch the focus from teaching to learning. And when you do that, you also learn the joy of achieving something,
Absolutely,
to take
yeah.
responsibility and creating something, which is not the fact when you just have teaching as a passive consumption process.
Right. Could we take a question here, please?
Hi, my name is Mohammed Al-Faim. I've been educated all of my life in the UK, in London. I agree with Mr. Abdulaziz Trabzani when in the beginning you said that the government should differentiate between SMEs and between large companies, as at the moment they treat us the same, which is a bit unfair, I believe. That's why last year 500 companies, they moved to the UAE, which was an easier service, government help. I believe now the government, especially the Ministry of Labor, either they should, for people who've been educated outside and want jobs, you asked before, why do people go to government jobs?
Right.
Because they believe that the SMEs is not secure enough, because we don't have government backing, unlike large companies, where they have government backing, they have people they know, which is
Okay.
help, and that's the point that I want to pass on. Thank you very much.
All right. I go back to you, Zaid. Do you think about the day when that will come when you will have to leave the incubator, and how do you feel safe and secure enough?
Well, of course, everything is, and nothing is for sure. You can't wait for the government to step in every part or to secure small businesses. I understand the point where contracts are hard to bid about, but you should always take risks. That's what makes the rewards higher, is by taking a chance and doing something instead of waiting in the governmental job and not knowing what's going to happen next.
Right. We have another question to the back there. Who has the mic? Yeah, just there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Ihab Uthman. I'm an entrepreneur and a very passionate
Just
learner.
bring up the mic a little bit closer. Thank
Learner to learn. I've really odd touch base on a very important point regarding the importance of learning to learn. My question, Odd, there have been lots of attempts to really do radical reform in education across the globe. Radical, like as you said, it's not only about changing the screens, making it smart classrooms, but really opening more platforms for change in education. Do you think that a start should be led by the West, or it's a potential place to do such reforms here in such areas?
Informal education?
I'm not sure.
Do you think that there's a call for, if I understood you correctly, informal education is a new direction? Do you think this could be a frontier for informal education? Or should it start in the West?
Of it. Indeed, correct.
I absolutely see this as a frontier. I mean, this is a country where you have half of the population and a growing number of people in those ages. And I think this is a country who are coming to the insight that the real natural resource of Saudi Arabia is not oil, it's people. It's its people, it's its human capital strategy. So I think the time is right, the conviction is here, and I'm even more convinced when I heard the minister today. And this could be, and you are not as fixed in the structure as we are in Europe or several other places. So I think what will eventually change the one-size-fits-all factory model of schools that was once invented in Europe in the late 19th century to provide workforce for the factories That will happen in the emerging parts of the world, and I see Saudi Arabia as absolutely key.
We have less than a minute to go. I don't know if we have any more questions in the room. We have a question from Jim Greenberg asking, how can you train a broader base such things as work ethic, time discipline, and self-driven desire to personally excel and improve? That's what employers want to see when they are interviewing recruits. How can you train that? Do we have a comment?
I think it's by rules. I mean, it's very hard in these parts of in some companies in Saudi to really to have strict rules. You know, it's in companies like Aramco, for example. You're very encouraged to be on time and to deliver everything as set. But when companies develop and grow, they have to implement strict rules and promote learning and managing their projects well and so on.
Yeah. Rayan, did you have to learn the Aramco rules on the job, or did you go in with all these characteristics in you already?
I would say some of them I had with me, but some of them I had to learn through my mentors and through the professionals in Saudi Aramco. But let me emphasize on the point, just one point. I believe this generation is different. It's just different. I mean, they're more team-oriented. They're more tech-savvy, and tech-savvy, and they really like meaningful work. What I mean meaningful work is work that touches on your life, interest, value, and passion, right? So once you give your employee something meaningful, something that has a line of sight, what I mean by a line of sight is that the employee understands how his small part contributes to the big picture, how his little own story contributes to the bigger story of the company. That's when the employee becomes very engaged, and you really don't have to teach him that much because he'll learn by himself. Once he really feels that he or she, of course, is contributing to the overall growth of the company. The second thing is reward and recognition is very important, and I'm not talking here about only financial rewards. I'm talking about intrinsic rewards. You know, simple words like thank you, congratulations, recognizing those young generation in front of their peers might really lift their spirit up and you know, make them really progress in their careers much faster than any other financial reward that they might get.
I think you said it right. I think Kingsley said it as well, keeping the youth engaged by keeping them aware of the big picture and having that big picture in their view. Interestingly, Jack Welch quotation that I read says that before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself, and when you are a leader, it's all about growing others. So there is a duty, of course, to grow yourself first, and then you pass that on and grow to others. Well, if there are no more questions, I think we will wrap this up now. Oh, we have one question, but please make it short because we did run out of time. Krista,
hey,
nice to see you.
Hi, Sabahat. Nice to see you again. Krista Brookman. I just have a question, or maybe it's an observation about the eminence of online learning that's taking place, specifically around global platforms like edX, which is a collaboration between MIT and Harvard, and especially the appearance of it here in Saudi Arabia with Daroob, D-O-R-O-O-B. Can any of the panel speak to any experience that you've had on this platform that allows for free online education to anyone?
Has online education been useful to any of you? I'll ask the three gentlemen on the end there. Have you had any experience of using online education?
Well, I know of, it's not a government project, but it's a project called Rawaq, if I'm not mistaken, and it focuses more on Arabic content. So it's, they have courses online and it's free for everyone. And the material in Arabic is really the problem. It's not the platform. The coursework that you find from Harvard and MIT, if you do it in class, if you do it online, it's all good. But the Arabic content is really what matters. So we have to start building good curriculum before even thinking of taking it online.
And that plays very nicely into your area, Odd.
Yeah. Well, from my experience and the research and other experiences done, online education as a standalone alternative to brick and mortar education is disappointing. The result is disappointing. You can see the number of people listening to mocks, but the number of taking exams based on that are very few. So I think a hybrid model is what should be done. We use digital learning portals not to substitute teachers, but to liberate quality time for teachers so you can empower them. And I think that's the way development eventually will go, we're hybrids.
Right. Thank you all very much. Thank you for joining me on this panel, and thank you all for coming in and for all the good questions. I think we break for lunch now, and we'll reconvene a bit later on. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this morning's program. We now invite you to join us for the workshops and the exhibits. Lunch will begin back in this room at 1:25. Once more, please make your way to the workshops and exhibits so we may prepare this room for lunch. Thank you.